Vault 12. Vault 12 stands as a chilling example of corporate negligence disguised as protection. Built beneath Bakersfield, California, this facility marketed itself as a haven equipped with state-of-the-art amenities. The promotional materials boasted about comfort features and an advanced water purification system capable of producing 15,000 gallons of clean water daily. Families felt fortunate to have spots reserved in this technological marvel. When the nuclear bombs dropped on October 23, 2077, thousands of Bakersfield residents rushed toward Vault 12, clutching their loved ones and whatever possessions they could carry. The massive vault door stood before them like a gateway to salvation. They filed inside, breathing sighs of relief as the chaos of the nuclear apocalypse raged above ground. Finally, they were safe. Except they weren't safe at all. Vault-Tec had engineered a fatal flaw into the very structure meant to protect these people. The vault door had been deliberately designed with a defect that prevented it from sealing properly. This wasn't an accident or manufacturing error. Engineers had intentionally created this weakness to ensure radiation would continuously seep into the living quarters. The residents had no idea they were participating in a long-term radiation exposure study. Day after day, invisible waves of deadly radiation filtered through the faulty seal, bombarding the inhabitants with harmful particles. The effects manifested gradually at first. People experienced fatigue, nausea, and unexplained illnesses. Then the deaths began. Radiation killed many quickly, but others mutated into ghouls. Some stayed conscious, others became feral. Survivors later formed the ruined settlement of Necropolis, exposing Vault-Tec's cruelty. Vault 95. Vault 95 represents perhaps the cruelest manipulation of human vulnerability in the entire Vault-Tec catalog. This facility specifically targeted individuals struggling with chemical addiction, people desperately seeking a fresh start and freedom from their dependencies. Vault-Tec advertised it as a comprehensive rehabilitation center where addicts could overcome their demons and build meaningful new lives away from the temptations that had destroyed them. The marketing campaign attracted hundreds of people at their absolute lowest points. These were individuals who had lost jobs, relationships, and dignity to addiction. They saw Vault 95 as their last chance at redemption. When they arrived, the facility appeared legitimate in every way. Professional counselors conducted therapy sessions, support groups met regularly. The vault provided structure, accountability, and genuine community. For 5 full years, the rehabilitation program functioned exactly as promised. Residents made remarkable progress in their recovery journeys. They formed deep bonds with one another, supporting each other through cravings and emotional struggles. Former strangers became family. People who had spent years destroying themselves finally found hope and purpose. Many hadn't felt this healthy or optimistic in decades, but this entire recovery process was just the setup for Vault-Tec's true experiment. Hidden among the genuine recovering addicts was a planted Vault-Tec agent tasked with documenting what would happen when the real test began. This infiltrator lived among the residents, pretending to share their struggles while secretly reporting their progress to company researchers. On October 23, 2082, exactly 5 years after the vault sealed, the agent waited until the entire population had fallen asleep. Then, following predetermined instructions, they accessed a massive hidden compartment concealed within the living quarters. Inside lay an enormous stash of drugs and alcohol, every substance these people had fought so hard to escape. An agent sabotaged Vault 95 by exposing residents to their worst temptations, causing mass relapses, violence, and chaos. The Vault's community collapsed, leaving many dead, revealing Vault-Tec's cruel psychological experiment. Vault 92. Vault 92 presented itself as a noble endeavor to preserve humanity's cultural heritage during uncertain times. Vault-Tec specifically recruited the world's most talented musicians, composers, and performers. These artists received invitations explaining they would help safeguard musical knowledge and artistry while waiting out the nuclear apocalypse. The facility, completed in 2068, boasted extensive recording equipment, professional-grade instruments, and soundproof studios. In Vault 92, 245 musicians initially thrived, building a creative paradise. But Overseer Rubin secretly implemented the white noise mind suggestion experiment, subtly embedding ultra-low frequency signals in their music to test mind control, initially disguised as equipment glitches. As the tests showed promising results, Rubin dramatically expanded the program's scope. Speakers throughout the entire vault were retrofitted with white noise emitters. Security confiscated all personal music players and devices under the pretense of ensuring optimal audio quality. From that point forward, residents could only listen to vault-provided audio, all of which contained the hidden frequency patterns. In Vault 92, constant exposure to mind-controlling frequencies made a third of residents highly suggestible. Side effects soon turned musicians violent, destroying their community. By the lone wanderer's arrival, the vault was flooded, silent, and abandoned. Vault 75. Vault 75 committed perhaps the most morally indefensible act in Vault-Tec's entire catalog by specifically targeting children. The company presented this facility to families as a secure educational shelter located beneath a public school. Parents received subsidized admission prices to encourage high enrollment, with Vault-Tec marketing the vault as giving children the best possible chance at survival and continued learning. When nuclear sirens wailed across the city, every family with a student at the school made it to Vault 75 in time. Parents and children descended together, relieved to have reached safety. But the moment families entered the facility, security staff implemented the vault's true protocol. Children were immediately separated from their parents under the guise of orientation procedures. Staff explained that kids would go to the atrium for an age-appropriate briefing while adults received different information. Trusting the official process, families complied. Parents never saw their children again. The moment the children left the entrance area, security personnel systematically executed every adult in the vault. The parents who had trusted Vault-Tec to protect their most precious treasures were murdered within minutes of arrival. Their bodies were disposed of before the children could discover what had happened. The orphaned children were raised in complete isolation within the vault. Staff taught them elaborate lies about up-to-planned, their derogatory term for the post-apocalyptic surface world. Children learned that horrible mutants and radiation storms made the outside world utterly uninhabitable. This indoctrination kept them compliant and eliminated any desire to leave. Vault 75's actual purpose was conducting genetic refinement through selective breeding programs, hormonal treatments, and genetic modification. The children were essentially livestock being cultivated to produce superior human specimens. Staff monitored every aspect of their development, from physical capabilities to intelligence metrics to personality traits. At Vault 75, upon reaching 18, children were evaluated. The genetically elite were harvested, the obedient became experimenters, and the rest were killed under the guise of graduation. This cycle persisted for generations until a rebellion ended it, leaving lasting evidence when the sole survivor arrived. Vault 108. Vault 108 stands out because Vault-Tec didn't implement just one experiment. Instead, they deliberately engineered multiple catastrophic scenarios simultaneously, apparently curious to see which factor would destroy the Vault Society first. This approach created a perfect storm of dysfunction and violence. Construction on Vault 108 began in 2061, but encountered significant delays and work stoppages, finally halting completely in 2069. The vault never reached full completion, leaving it structurally compromised from the beginning. Despite these issues, Vault-Tec proceeded with habitation plans, housing 475 residents intended to survive for 38 years. The first engineered failure point involved the Vault's leadership structure. Vault-Tec intentionally left all standard administrative positions unfilled, granting the overseer absolute power to assign roles arbitrarily. This concentration of authority eliminated checks and balances that might maintain social stability. However, Vault-Tec specifically selected Brody Jones as overseer, knowing he carried a genetic predisposition to a rare aggressive cancer. Medical projections gave Jones approximately 3 years to live. Vault-Tec deliberately chose a dying man to lead the Vault, guaranteeing a power vacuum would emerge early in the Vault's existence when social structures were still forming. The second failure point targeted the Vault's infrastructure. Engineers programmed the primary power supply to fail after just 20 years of operation. The backup system installed lacked sufficient capacity to power the entire facility, meaning residents would face difficult choices about which systems to maintain and which to abandon. The third catastrophic element involved social dynamics. Vault 108 was stocked with 3 times the normal weapon allocation while completely lacking standard entertainment options. Residents had abundant firepower, but nothing constructive to do with their time. This combination created a heavily armed bored population primed for conflict. In Vault 108, scientists cloned a man named Gary, but successive clones grew increasingly violent and cognitively degraded. By Gary 54, clones attacked anyone not like them, saying only, "Gary." The Vault descended into chaos, leaving it overrun with aggressive, identical clones when the Lone Wanderer arrived. Vault 112. Hidden beneath Smith Casey's garage, Vault 112 represents one of Vault-Tec's most psychologically sophisticated torture chambers. Completed in 2074 as one of the last vaults constructed, this facility was designed specifically to house Dr. Stanislaus Brown, the brilliant creator of the Garden of Eden creation kit, along with 85 carefully selected residents. The vault's stated purpose seemed almost utopian compared to other facilities. Residents would be suspended in tranquility loungers, advanced life support pods connected to a sophisticated virtual reality simulation. Their bodies would remain in perfect stasis while their consciousness experienced an endless digital existence. Vault-Tec promised these people they would live perfect virtual lives forever, experiencing anything they could imagine. The technology worked exactly as advertised. The Tranquility Loungers maintained residents' physical bodies in flawless condition while their minds inhabited fully immersive simulated environments. Sensations felt completely real. Residents could taste food, feel temperature changes, and experience emotions with absolute authenticity. What residents didn't know was that Dr. Brown possessed complete administrative control over the simulation. He could alter reality within the virtual world at will, creating or destroying anything instantly. More critically, residents had no method of exiting the simulation independently. They were trapped in a digital prison controlled by a single individual. Initially, Brown may have genuinely intended to create peaceful virtual paradises for the Vault residents. Perhaps he envisioned beautiful worlds where people could live out their fantasies indefinitely. But absolute power corrupts absolutely, and Brown's godlike control over 85 helpless minds eventually twisted him into a monster. Virtual madness gripped Vault 112, as Brown used the simulation to torture residents for 200 years, repeatedly killing them and erasing their memories. Thousands of deaths later, the Lone Wanderer faced a choice: end the residents' suffering or leave them trapped, while Brown remained forever lost in his twisted world. Vault 87. Vault 87 served as the epicenter for one of Vault-Tec's most horrific biological experiments involving the forced evolutionary virus known as FEV. Construction on this facility began in 2066 and concluded in 2071. Initially planned for a different social experiment, the Vault was converted into a secondary research center specifically for FEV testing after the virus showed promising results elsewhere. Unlike Vault 12's passive radiation exposure experiment, Vault 87 conducted active, hands-on biological experimentation. Dr. Wayne Merrick and his research staff operated the evolutionary experimentation program with full knowledge of what they were doing. The Vault's overseer and security personnel understood the horrific nature of the experiments, but followed Vault-Tec's orders without question. The research team systematically exposed Vault residents to FEV, meticulously documenting every stage of their agonizing transformation into super mutants. This wasn't quick or painless. The process subjected victims to excruciating suffering as the virus rewrote their biology at the cellular level. Subjects experienced unbearable pain as their skeletal structure stretched and expanded. Bones that had finished growing decades earlier suddenly began elongating, causing fractures and deformities. Muscles expanded rapidly, tearing and reforming as the virus forced unprecedented growth. Skin changed texture and color, becoming thick and resilient, but losing all normal human characteristics. Twisted by the FEV virus, Vault 87 became a breeding ground for monstrous super mutants. The virus sterilized and enhanced subjects, granting immense strength but destroying their minds. Experiments spiraled out of control, and the mutants took over the Vault. 2 centuries later, the lone wanderer discovered it still overrun, as these creatures continued spreading the virus and creating new horrors. Vault 11. Vault 11 represents Vault-Tec's ultimate psychological experiment and arguably the most disturbing vault ever conceived. The premise was deceptively simple but devastatingly effective. Residents were informed that every year they must sacrifice one person by executing them. If they refused to sacrifice someone, the Vault's computer system would kill everyone inside. This was a complete lie. The truth was the exact opposite. If residents had simply refused to sacrifice anyone, the Vault's computer would have congratulated them for choosing human dignity over survival, unlocked the Vault door, and granted them free access to the surface. But the residents never discovered this truth until it was far too late. In the Vault, annual murder led to a twisted democratic system where overseers were elected to be sacrificed. Political manipulation turned leadership disastrous, culminating in Catherine Stone killing the corrupt faction and changing the system to a random lottery, spreading fear across the community. This change triggered civil war. Residents who had navigated the political system suddenly faced random death. Factions clashed violently. The Vault descended into chaos as neighbor turned against neighbor. Nearly everyone died in the resulting violence. Haunted by 16 years of deadly deception, Vault 11's final 5 residents made a stand. They refused to sacrifice anyone, preserving their humanity. The computer revealed the experiment was a lie and unlocked the Vault. Overcome with guilt, 4 ended their lives, leaving only one survivor, a chilling testament to fear's power to corrupt human nature.